Hi guys and welcome back to Is It Worth It Reviews. Today we are going to talk about Verum 2 headphones, and if you maybe follow my channel for some time, you're already aware that I reviewed Verum 1 MK2 some time ago, like 2 years, maybe even more, and I loved these. They used to cost 350 euros, well, they still cost that much, and they just checked so many right boxes. I loved them. As you can see, I kept them with me for a long time, and basically any headphones around that same price that I reviewed in these last 2 years, I compared to Verum 1. And some sounded better in some regards, but not in all. And time has passed, but I still keep them as my reference at that price point, and I still keep recommending them to my friends and viewers. Having that in mind, you can guess that I expect quite a lot from Verum 2. And these are still pre-production model, but everything is basically finalized, technical specs and sonics, everything is final, except some parts like outer shell that is still 3D printed, because Kickstart campaign is still ongoing and funds for mass production and molds to make them are being collected, and all the basic goals are being achieved and then some, so this model is happening. And what have changed compared to Verum 1? Well, if you look from the outside, you still have this metal build and there is a leather strap, very comfy cushions that are magnetically attached, so you can easily change them. And in the basic kits that goes for 400 euros, you get one set of pads, one single-ended cable, and all of that is just sent to you. If you opt for more expensive kit at 500 euros, aside from what I've just mentioned, you also get another set of ear pads that are slightly different, a hard case and a second cable, so you can connect it to balanced output. The tech inside is also changed slightly, or I should probably say improved, because we still have planar drivers, but this time around they're thinner, much lighter, and also some conductive elements on the planar elements are made out of silver instead of aluminum, which is much better conductor, silver that is. So we have better conductivity, thinner and lighter membranes, so they are actually quicker, speedier, easier to control, quicker to start and stop, and this should be noticeable in their sound, but we'll get to that. The impedance went up a bit with 12 ohms now compared to 8 ohms on Verum 1 model, and that doesn't make much of a difference. You still need a current capable amplifier to drive this. Sensitivity went down, so Verum 1 are more sensitive, they will produce more volume for the same amount of power, so a good headphone amplifier is definitely advised for Verum 2 if you want to hear what they can really do. But just before we get to that part, what they can do, I wanted to say that comfort is actually great. They worked on this leather strap to improve it, so it actually lays on the longer portion of your head. And some headphones, I remember AKG for example, they have this kind of strap that touches your head at just one narrow point, and that can get annoying and in some cases even painful if this leather is not of a high quality and not soft enough. But this leather strap is probably the most comfy strap that I've tried recently. Cushions are big, they're soft, they're just plushy, and this is one very comfy set of headphones. And yeah, you do not have to unscrew this yoke to adjust the headband anymore, you just push it up or down. It's firm, it's tactile, you cannot mistakenly readjust it, so I think all of this is just fine. Which leaves us with how they sound. Starting with tonality, Verum 2 definitely took new approach. Instead of that slightly warmer and mellower character of Verum 1, these are now as neutral as it gets. They're better in extremes, like sub-bass and really high frequencies. These are more present. And then the mid-range is not as warm and as mellow as it was with Verum 1. But to be realistic here, this is definitely a more neutral tuning. And tonally speaking, these are more realistic and more transparent sounding. And because of that, Verum 2 are actually more telling of the quality of source that you are using, that you are connecting them to, like headphone amplifier and the DAC. So if you're using, for example, really low quality, slightly sharper, more analytical sounding DAC and amp like Topping DX3, yes, it's highly revealing device, but it is sharp and analytical sounding. It will sound like that with Verum 2, whereas Verum 1 would conceal and blanket that a little bit and warm it up, and you would notice shortcomings of the electronics less. On the other hand, if you actually have a really great amplifier and great DAC with more information or better dynamics, better punch and drive, Verum 2 will scale with electronics better and they will provide better sound with more information, and you will actually hear more of that quality coming from your electronics than it was possible with Verum 1. Which actually leads me to other things aside from tonality. And let's start with dynamics. Verum 2 is improvement on that front. And I definitely felt while testing them that they can take more power and they can handle more power from the amp. You can crank up that volume and they'll just increase the volume, and everything is still going to stay organized and well controlled and well separated, and you don't feel that any dynamic compression or struggle is kicking in, and that's going for longer than it was the case with Verum 1. So I can comfortably listen to Verum 2 at really loud volume levels without noticing any strain on their part. And Verum 1 are already starting to be a bit boomy and uncontrolled and simply straining at those same volume levels. And at the same time, Verum 2 is more revealing, it's more informative. You simply hear more things happening in the recording. And they're also speedier, quicker. Tones are quicker to start and quicker to stop. You notice that most easily probably in the mid-bass section, where everything is just snappier and quicker and more controlled, tidier than it was on the Verum 1, even though I actually feel that Verum 2 have more sub-bass emphasis, more of that deep bass. And that is especially true with these bass reflex pads. The other ones have slightly less of a deep bass, but everything else is quite similar. So that's why I'm not going to dedicate any special time to comparing the sound with different pads. They sound quite similar to me, but these with bass reflex ports have more low bass presence, and I slightly prefer them. Try for yourself. Find out. But back to the headphones themselves, yes, you can definitely notice higher speed and just higher resolution across the board, more information across the frequency spectrum. And lastly, I don't want to forget this part, sound staging and just layering is also improved with Verum 2. There is a better sensation of soundstage width and just empty space around you, and air that separates clean and well layered, well separated, and really masterfully pinpointed tones like vocals and instruments arranged around and inside of your head. All of that was good with Verum 1, but Verum 2 simply do all of that better. Now let's do some comparisons, and for that I quickly started with some dynamic driver headphones at roughly 300 euros, and I started with Meze 99 Classics and Aune. AR5000s. Both of these are just not the same tier sonically with Verum 2. Yes, they are more affordable, but the gap in sonic performance is even bigger than that price gap is. So Aune here sounded flatter, more congested, and more dynamically compressed, and it could not take as much of power, and you cannot crank up the volume as much as with Verum 2, sorry. Verum 2 is simply bigger, livelier sounding, wider soundstage, more details. It's just another tier of performance. And given that Meze 99 Classics are roughly on the same level with Aune AR5000s, it's the same story really. So no need to linger on this comparison too much really. Verum 2 are more expensive, but they're far superior when it comes to sonic qualities. Comparison with Verum 1, which basically the whole sound section was, but I'll do a quick recap. Verum 1 sound warmer, they have bolder mid-bass, and they color the sound more. Now, if you like their coloring, and if you have thinner or more analytical sounding electronics that is driving your headphones, then you might actually still prefer Verum 1. They give nice warmth and nice full-bodied sound to everything, yet they are still technically quite capable headphones. And they're mostly neutral, but they have a bit of that mellow and warm spice. Also, they're easier to drive. These will work fine with most portable devices. Even DAC dongles will drive Verum 2 satisfyingly. Verum 2 technically more capable, more dynamic. They have better layering, bigger soundstage, more information. They can handle more power, but all of that becomes noticeable once you connect them to really good desktop electronics. If your electronics is not that good, Verum 1 is more forgiving. And because of that, I asked the manufacturer, will Verum 1 go away? And they said Verum 1 is not going anywhere, they will still be produced and sold. And I think that's a good idea, because in some cases you actually might prefer Verum 1, even though Verum 2 are an upgrade, and in absolute terms they are better set of headphones with more potential, with better scalability, and people with really high quality setups should prefer Verum 2. And one headphones that I don't have with me anymore, unfortunately, Moondrop Para, I felt that those might be equally spacious and airy and have great layering and separation, as good as Verum 2, but on the other hand, those didn't have such a good bass performance. It was a little bit leaner, very speedy, but it did not have thump and punch and grunt that Verum 2 has. And take this with a grain of salt, but I also think that Verum 2 might have slightly better technicalities in the highest frequencies. They feel better extended and just more complete than what Moondrop Para offered. And my last comparison for today is with GoldPlanar GL2000's double-sided version. And not everybody like these, but they are one of my all-time favorites, with their informative yet bold and dense sound. They have really dense and kind of rich and creamy sounding mid-range. But they also have that kind of tuning that makes upper frequencies, upper mid-range, and that region of sibilance, it's laid back. So they are never sharp and never edgy. Because of that, some people call them muffled or not resolving. They only sound like that if your source is muddy sounding, too bassy, subpar in terms of resolution and drive, but if you connect them to wordy electronics, they should present creamy, dense mid-range, really informative, really high resolution, but warmish and mellow in a way, with a deep and punchy bass line and informative highs that are not that prominent. By the way, these were $750 when I reviewed them. I believe nowadays they're slightly below 700, so they are still pricier than Verum 2. And when I compare them directly, Verum 2 does sound leaner and tonally flatter, more towards hi-fi kind of sound. Not as dense and just creamy and warm as these, but on the other hand, highest frequencies feel more extended and they have more of that radiant character to them. And also sub-bass, that deep bass, at times feels even more extended than with GoldPlanars. But throughout the mid-range, Verum 2s are slightly leaner sounding. That said, they're also quicker and snappier and just speedier compared to slightly slower sounding GoldPlanars. And in this case, if you would strictly talk about technicalities and how resolving and high resolution and quick they are, Verum 2 actually takes that win. But if you like something that's very pleasantly colored, slightly warm and creamy and very dense in the mid-range, and deliberately tuned not to be edgy and sharp, you might prefer GoldPlanars. But just being in a place where you exchange punches with pricier headphones, and in some aspects even defeating them, is a very good place to be for Verum 2, especially when you take into account that the basic kit costs just 400 euros. And I'm not the one that will bring comparisons with the end-of-the-line models above 1000 and several thousands these days, because the things are just getting pricier and more premium and more extreme. I'm just not paying that much for headphones. I respect everybody that does, but for those kind of comparisons you would have to watch some other reviewer. So taking that price limit of roughly up to 1000 euros into an account and having that in mind, Verum 2s are one of the finest headphones that I've personally heard. Especially if you like something very neutral, very transparent, very dynamic, that can take a lot of power without losing control and losing its sound. Verum 2 should be high, and I mean very high, on your wish list. And that would be all for today, guys. Thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed it, see you next time.